I think one of the strangest things the internet did was change our sense of time. Not literally. A minute is still a minute. An hour is still an hour. But somehow everything feels faster than it used to. Conversations move faster. Trends move faster. News moves faster. Relationships move faster. Even boredom disappears faster. And after a while, it starts to feel normal. Most people don't notice it because they grew into it gradually. There was no single day where the world suddenly sped up. It happened piece by piece. A new app, a faster connection, more notifications, more content, more things competing for attention. And eventually, life started feeling less like something you experience and more like something that constantly updates. A lot of people wake up and immediately enter that stream. Messages, videos, posts, headlines, recommendations, opinions. Before they've even fully woken up, their brain is already moving through dozens of different topics. A celebrity scandal, a political argument, a funny video, a product advertisement, a random life update from someone they haven't seen in years. And all of it happens within minutes, maybe seconds. The human brain was never really designed for that kind of pace. For most of history, information moved slowly. If something happened far away, you might not hear about it for days, sometimes weeks. Now people learn about events on the other side of the planet almost instantly. And the strange thing is that we don't just receive more information. We emotionally react to more information. That's the exhausting part. Every day we're exposed to hundreds of tiny emotional shifts. Something makes us laugh. Something makes us angry. Something makes us anxious. Something makes us curious. Something makes us compare ourselves to somebody else. Then another piece of content appears before the previous, feeling even as time to settle. The emotional pace becomes just as fast as the informational pace. And after enough years of that, slowing down starts feeling uncomfortable. A lot of people say they want a slower life, but when they actually encounter slowness, it feels unfamiliar. Waiting in line without looking at a phone, sitting in a room without background noise, walking somewhere without music or a podcast. Moments that used to feel normal now feel strangely empty. Not because they're actually empty, because we've become used to constant movement. The internet rarely allows a moment to stay still. The second something starts feeling quiet, something else appears. A new video, a new recommendation, a new notification, a new conversation. There is always another thing waiting. And over time, that changes expectations. People begin expecting every experience to move quickly. If a video takes too long to get interesting, they leave. If a conversation feels slow, they check their phone. If a movie has a quiet scene, they lose focus. If a website takes a few extra seconds to load, it feels broken. The actual delay might be tiny, but emotionally, we've become less tolerant of waiting. The internet didn't just speed things up, it changed what feels slow. That's a very different thing, because once expectations change, everything else starts feeling different too. Even relationships. You can see it everywhere. People meet faster, text faster, share personal details faster, develop expectations faster, get disappointed faster, move on faster. Sometimes it feels like entire friendships happen in the time it used to take people to become acquaintances. There are obvious advantages to that. People can connect across countries. Communities can form instantly. Relationships that would have been impossible before can now exist. But speed always changes the experience itself. The faster something moves, the less time there is to sit with uncertainty. And uncertainty used to be a normal part of life. You sent a message and waited. You called someone and hoped they answered. You wondered what somebody thought about you. Now answers arrive quickly. And when they don't, the absence becomes noticeable. A delayed reply that once seemed normal can suddenly feel significant. Not because anything changed, because expectations changed. The internet quietly trained people to expect immediacy. And immediacy is addictive. Once you become used to getting answers instantly, waiting starts feeling like friction, even when nothing is wrong. The same thing happened with entertainment. For most of human history, boredom was unavoidable. You encountered it constantly. Waiting rooms, long car rides, quiet afternoons, ordinary moments with nothing happening. Today, boredom often lasts only a few seconds before a screen removes it. The moment a gap appears, Content rushes in to fill it. And at first that sounds convenient. Why be bored if you don't have to be? But boredom used to serve a purpose. It created space. Space for reflection. Space for imagination. Space for random thoughts that appeared when nothing else was demanding attention. A lot of people miss those thoughts now. Not because they became less thoughtful, because there are fewer empty spaces where those thoughts can arrive. Modern life often feels packed from morning until night, not necessarily with responsibilities, with input, information, content, stimulation, noise. Sometimes people finish an entire day and realize they haven't spent much time alone with their own thoughts. Not because they avoided them, because there was never a moment available. Something was always playing. Something was always scrolling. Something was always updating. The internet became a background layer that follows people almost everywhere. And when something is always present, it stops feeling noticeable. That's part of why these changes are difficult to see. Nobody wakes up one day and says, "My perception of time has changed." Instead, they notice smaller things. Weeks feel shorter. Months disappear unexpectedly. Years seem to pass faster than they remember. People often blame age for that feeling. And age probably plays a role. But technology plays a role too. Because when experiences become fragmented into thousands of tiny pieces, memories can start feeling fragmented as well. Think about how many videos the average person watches in a single week. How many posts? How many headlines? How many pieces of information briefly pass through awareness before disappearing forever? Most of them are forgotten almost immediately, yet they still occupy attention in the moment. It's like constantly skimming the surface of countless experiences without staying with any of them for very long. The days become full, yet somehow difficult to remember. There's another strange effect that comes from all this. Nothing feels recent anymore. A story from yesterday feels old. A trend from last week feels ancient. A viral video from a month ago feels like it belongs to another era. The speed of information compresses our sense of relevance. Things arrive quickly, and they disappear just as quickly. The result is a culture that constantly moves forward, but rarely stays anywhere for long. Even major events sometimes get absorbed into the content cycle faster than people expect. Something dominates attention for a few days. Then something else arrives. Then something else. Then something else. The cycle keeps moving, not because people don't care, because there's always another thing competing for attention. And attention has limits. The internet gave people access to almost everything, but it didn't give them unlimited capacity to process everything. So life becomes a continuous stream of partial attention, half focused on one thing, half focused on another, always slightly pulled toward whatever comes next. Maybe that's why so many people feel tired, even when they're technically resting, because consuming information isn't always restful. Sometimes it simply looks restful. Lying on a couch scrolling feels different from physical work, but the mind is still moving, still processing, still shifting between topics, still responding to stimuli, hour after hour, day after day, year after year. Eventually that pace starts feeling normal. And that's probably the most interesting part. Not that everything became faster, but that people adapted. The human mind is remarkably flexible. Whatever surrounds it long enough eventually starts feeling ordinary. The endless stream becomes ordinary. The constant updates become ordinary. The expectation of instant access becomes ordinary. The speed stops feeling fast because it's all you've known for years. And that's where the real change happened. Not in the technology itself, not in the devices, not in the apps, but in the background assumptions people carry without realizing it. The assumption that something should always be happening. The assumption that waiting is unusual. The assumption that silence needs filling. The assumption that every moment can be occupied by something. None of those ideas arrived overnight. They settled in quietly, little by little, year after year, until they stopped feeling like changes at all. And maybe that's why the internet feels so difficult to talk about sometimes. Its biggest effects aren't always obvious. They aren't dramatic. They don't announce themselves. They become part of everyday life, part of how people think, part of how they spend their time, part of what feels normal. The world didn't suddenly become fast. It slowly learned to move faster. And after enough time, people learned to move with it. Now the pace feels natural. The constant updates feel natural. The endless flow feels natural. But natural and familiar aren't always the same thing. Sometimes something becomes familiar simply because it's been there for a long time. And that's the part people rarely notice. Not that everything changed, but that the change happened so gradually. Most of us stopped seeing it while it was happening.